The night James Carter clicked apply on the job listing, it was raining so hard that the sound of drops hammering the cracked window pane almost drowned out the hum of his overworked space heater. The apartment was dim, lit only by the light of his ancient laptop and the faint glow of the hallway bulb that always flickered like it was thinking too hard. He had just put Chloe to bed. She was 6, and brave in a way children are, before they understand how fragile the world can be. Her hospital trips had become a routine, a rotation of appointments, blood draws, and whispered words from doctors. Words like experimental, uncovered, and progressive. Words that made his stomach knot. Bills spilled across the kitchen table like a hand of bad poker. Rent, miss, fuel. Chloe's backpack, shaped like a blue fox, was slumped by the door, half unzipped, a reminder of the kindergarten she rarely attended anymore. So when James saw the listing night security guard needed, reliable, calm, discreet, no experience required, he didn't think. He clicked. He barely remembered reading it. The mall sat 20 minutes outside of town, past the last flickering street lamp, and across a cracked lot where grass pushed through old pavement like nature taking back something forgotten. It had once been grand. James remembered coming here in high school. Now, only a handful of shops kept the place breathing. A discount shoe outlet, a half-lit cell phone repair booth, and, inexplicably, a tiny church renting an old nail salon. At night, it was just James. He parked near the loading dock management's orders and entered through a side door by the dumpsters. The smell was industrial rot, wet cardboard, expired grease, something else that didn't want a name. He stopped breathing through his nose. His office was a room near the food court, a fold-out desk, one rickety chair, a grainy monitor that showed security feeds from a dozen ancient cameras. Most flickered, one always glitched at 2. Teresa, apa, just static and a strange warping of light. There were no other guards, no cleaners, no real staff at all. Just James, his rounds, and the echo of his footsteps. The first few nights passed quietly. James walked the same route. Every hour, he checked security gates, most of which squealed when moved, and peeked into stores, like he was trying not to wake them. IKEA was the largest store still open, though no one was ever in it after dusk. He'd heard rumors of teenagers trying to live in the model bedrooms. One had supposedly camped out for 3 days. He didn't blame them, but something felt off. It wasn't anything specific at first, just a sensation, like being watched from behind. When you know you're alone, the air would drop 10 degrees for no reason. His flashlight beam would distort, like the light was being eaten at the edges. The mall seemed to breathe when he wasn't looking. One night, while reviewing footage, he noticed a distortion on camera 6, an unlit corridor near the old Sears. It shimmered like heat waves, but the air was freezing. He rewound, played it again. For 3 seconds, a figure stood at the edge of the frame. No face, no features, just a dark outline, then static. He went to check, nothing. Another night, he heard footsteps overhead, like someone running, but the second floor was sealed. On his break, if it could be called that, he stared at the one photo he kept on his desk. Chloe, missing a front tooth, smiling wide in her hospital bed. He thought of the way she clutched her Fox backpack whenever they entered the oncology wing. That look in her eyes, not fear, determination. James figured if she could fight that hard, so could he. It wasn't until his 7th night that he was sure he wasn't alone. He was making his 3rd round, everything normal, until he passed the carousel. It hadn't worked in years. The horses were peeling and cracked, their eyes lifeless, except one was turned slightly. He stopped, looked again. It was definitely facing him now. He hadn't heard a sound, hadn't seen it move. He laughed nervously, touched it. The horse was warm. That night, he didn't sleep. Even after his shift, even after the morning light filled the windows of his apartment, and Chloe crawled into his lap, asking for cereal. On his next shift, there was a note on the desk that hadn't been there before. It was written in pencil, faint. "You're being watched." There was no signature. James stared at it, then looked at the security monitor. Camera 6 was flickering again. On his 8th night at the mall, the strange became my new normal. The mall was a canvas for forgotten lives, each store and hallway hiding echoes of someone's story. Jesse had introduced me to the supernatural fabric of the place, but it was Lily who first showed me the heartbreak woven through the mall's faded tiles. Lily appeared most nights near the ice cream stand on the 2nd floor, her small form huddled in a corner, flashlight beam sweeping across the corridor that leads to the dead seer's wing. Her presence felt heavier some nights. He's walked past that stretch a dozen times. He's certain he knows every boarded storefront and empty display. But tonight, there's a door he hasn't noticed before. It swings gently on one broken hinge, like the entrance to an old-time saloon. He pushes it open. The scent hits first dust, old leather, and gun oil inside. The lighting is dim, but warm, casting long shadows over glass counters and rifle racks. Taxidermy heads hang from the walls. Bears, deer, a buffalo with one glowing eye. The place looks like a hunting lodge, frozen in time. Behind the counter stands a man. He's tall and lean, dressed like a movie cowboy. Long brown duster, dark hat, high boots with real spurs. He leans forward on the counter, his hands steepled, like he's been waiting. "Evening." "Lawman," he says, tipping his hat. James blinks. "I'm not a lawman." "Could have fooled me. You walk like one." James doesn't know how to respond. He steps in, eyes scanning the room. "This shop wasn't here before. It's always been here," the man replies, his smile slow and unsettling. "Just don't always want to be seen." His name is Jesse. Just Jesse. No last name, no badge, no ID, James asks. He gets stories instead. "I died chasing a bandit through the Mojave. Got ambushed. Left me for the vultures." "Didn't you say last night you were poisoned by your wife?" "Both true. Just depends which part you believe." Jesse never blinks, never sweats, and the longer James talks to him, the more the world outside the store fades into static. But Jesse listens. James starts making it a part of his route. The mall is cold and unnerving, and most nights Jesse is the only thing in it that talks back. He still doesn't trust him, but Jesse talks like someone who remembers being human, or maybe remembers pretending to be one. One night, after James tells Jesse about Chloe, about the treatments, the money, the way she smiles, like it's a shield, Jesse disappears behind the counter, returns with a wooden box. Inside, 6 bullets. Not copper, not brass, something else. Pale, like ivory, smooth. Cool. They glow faintly under the amber light. "Ghost shells," Jesse says. "Not for people, not even for most ghosts. These are for the kind of things that don't bleed, right?" James picks one up. It feels wrong, cold, like breath in a crypt, lighter than it should be. "Will these even fit my sidearm?" "They'll fit, but they ain't for shooting drunks or shoplifters. They're insurance for when the mall forgets what's real. Why give them to me?" Jesse leans in close. His breath smells like pine and ash. "'Cause you still remember what you're holding on to. Most of us here, we forgot, or we let go. But you're dangerous. Carter, not 'cause you're armed, 'cause you care. That's rare around here." James doesn't know whether to laugh or thank him. He pockets the bullets anyway. That night, as he walks past the carousel, one of the horses turns again, but this time, it snarls. He doesn't fire, doesn't run, just stands still, hand on the pouch where the shells sit. The thing watching him doesn't move forward. After a few seconds, it backs down. Over the next few nights, Jesse opens up more, sort of You ever kill a man, Carter? Jesse asks one night, polishing a shotgun. No, it ain't like the movies. Doesn't echo, doesn't linger loud, just a kind of silence, like the world holding its breath. You remember your first time. Might have been self-defense, might have been greed, might have been both. Doesn't matter now. They all blur. Why are you still here? Jesse, place like this don't let go easy. Some of us, we stick 'cause we got stories to finish. Others, 'cause they got nowhere else to go. Me, I'm just waiting. For what? For them all to remember what it is, or for it to forget me. Whichever comes first. James tries loading one of the ghost shells into his weapon the following shift. It clicks into place, but the hammer resists. He points it at nothing, pulls the trigger, nothing happens. Jesse later explains, they don't work unless you're scared for someone else. That's the catch. They feed on purpose. James doesn't say anything, just removes the round, replaces it, and walks his route. But now, his steps are quieter, more deliberate. The mall listens. You ever gonna leave this place? James asks Jesse one night. What's leaving mean when you're already dead? James gives a faint smile, nods, then I'll see you tomorrow. Jesse taps the brim of his hat. Count on it. Lawman, the mall's second floor, had always been quieter, not just in sound, but in spirit. Fewer lights worked. Most stores had their gates permanently shuttered. Even the echoes felt weaker here, but James always checked it. Twice per shift. He said it was habit, but the truth was, Lily, the first time he saw her, he thought she was real. It was just after 2A, and he was halfway through a second sweep when he noticed the glowing mint green of the ice cream stand lights were on. No one was supposed to have power in that corner anymore. He rounded the corner and froze. A little girl was sitting on the floor, back against the counter, knees tucked to her chest. She wasn't crying, just staring down the hallway with wide, unblinking eyes. You lost? James asked. She turned slowly to look at him. Her eyes were pale, like fog over water. She didn't answer. You shouldn't be here, he said, kneeling. This place isn't safe at night. Still no answer. But then she whispered, he's watching. James looked behind him, but the hallway was empty. When he turned back, she was gone, but the mint chocolate chip cone sitting on the counter hadn't melted. After that night, she became part of the job. James didn't tell anyone. Who would he even tell? Each shift, he brought an extra scoop. He didn't know why. Maybe it was to prove to himself she was real. Or maybe it was something closer to duty. He named her Lily. She never confirmed it, but she didn't correct him either. Sometimes she'd sit behind the cart with her arms around her knees. Other times, she'd be perched on a bench near the dry fountain, humming a tune he never recognized. She never crossed to the south wing. What's over there? He once asked. She shook her head. The boiler man. He didn't push. One quiet night, James found a box of old documents in a forgotten storage closet. Memos, receipts, maintenance logs, and an incident report. It was dated 8 years back. Child fatality, escalator malfunction. There was no name, just a sketch of a fox-shaped backpack. James didn't need the name. That night, he sat beside the ice cream stand and didn't say a word, just placed the cone on the counter and waited. She came eventually, quiet, delicate. It wasn't your fault, he whispered. She looked at him. For the first time, her eyes softened. I know. One night, he found her humming again, and this time he sat beside her with 2 cones. Want to see a trick? He asked. She shrugged. He scooped a perfect sphere of mint chocolate chip while blindfolded. She giggled. The sound echoed off the walls like bells. Told you, it's a power. It's not a real power. It is here. That night, she leaned against his arm for a moment. Just a moment, but it was enough. James never figured out why the fountain stopped working, but he noticed the space around it stayed warmer than the rest of the mall. Lily liked sitting near it. One shift, she asked him, do you dream? James, sometimes I don't. Not anymore. What do you remember? The lights, The cold rail, the drop, then nothing, then this. James swallowed. Do you want to leave? She didn't answer. James made a silent promise. As long as he was on shift, no harm would come to her. He didn't know how he'd keep it. He just knew he would. The mall had things he didn't understand. Jesse had said as much. Some were watchers, others were predators, but Lily was just a child, and whatever rules governed this haunted place, James was ready to break them for her. Then came the night she didn't appear. Her cone sat untouched. The cart was dark. James searched everywhere. The fountain, the second-floor restrooms, even the elevator shaft. Panic grew in his chest. He walked toward the boiler room, salt line intact. Door closed. No movement. Still, he waited outside it for an hour. At 4:30, he found her crouched behind the stand again. She looked up. Her eyes were wet. He tried to call me. Who? The man in the pipes? He said, if I stepped over the line, I could see my mom again. James knelt beside her. He lied. I know. After that, James started calling her by name more often. Lily. You good tonight? Lily. Want a scoop? She'd nod or smile, sometimes wave. He started writing her name in the maintenance log, in invisible ink. Lily, okay? Lily safe. It became part of the routine. One night, just before dawn, she whispered, thank you. James nodded. Always. The lights flickered. The cone melted. The entrance to the boiler room was plain just a steel door, with chipped paint and a faded sign that read, Maintenance. Authorized personnel only. But James had learned early what lay beyond it wasn't just boilers and valves. He wasn't supposed to go down there alone, but there was no one else. Each time he made the trek, he paused at the salt line, a thin, unbroken rope of white grains across the doorway. He refreshed it every other shift, carefully pouring from a box of coarse salt like he was sealing a wound. He didn't know who had started the ritual, but someone had written the rules on a clipboard. Do not cross without checking the line. Do not speak his name. Do not look too long. James followed every word. Inside, the air was thick and humid. Machines hissed softly. Pipes groaned above, like something breathing too slowly. The air smelled like scorched metal and old cement, like a furnace that had once burned hotter than anything meant for humans. The light was red, always red. The pilot flame in the center boiler glowed steady. The room was massive, cavernous, like a cathedral built from rust. James walked the same path every time. 3 steps in, right at the tanks, left past the vent pipe, then stop. Take stock. Don't move too fast, because somewhere in that vast room, Mr. Longneck watched. James had seen him during his second week on the job. Just a face at first, half concealed behind a support beam, wide, lidless eyes, skin gray like wax. And then it moved, stretching forward, slowly, deliberately, a long, pale neck unspooling like a snake around the boiler. James had frozen, not in fear, exactly, but in confusion, the kind that stops your breath and traps it halfway up your chest. The face didn't blink, the mouth didn't open. It just watched. He hadn't run. Something told him not to. He stepped back, slowly, out the door, over the salt, and the thing hadn't followed. Now, every time he entered the boiler room, James made a silent promise to himself. No eye contact, no sudden movements, just walk, record, leave. He always carried the clipboard with trembling fingers. The valve readings, pressure reports, and tank checks were a smokescreen, a ritual to keep him moving. And every time, Mr. Longneck was there, never in the same spot, sometimes curled around a pillar, sometimes overhead, watching from the beams, sometimes just a glimmer in the reflection of a boiler's glass. James never spoke, and the thing never stepped across the salt. Sometimes, when the steam vents hissed, James heard words, whispers, not loud, but not ignorable either. You left her. They all burned down here. No name, no time, He chalked it up to imagination, the mind playing tricks, until one night, the whispers spoke his name, James. He dropped the clipboard. The sound echoed too long. He didn't retrieve it. He walked backward to the door, stepped over the salt, closed it behind him. Only then did he breathe. He won't cross the salt, Jesse said later, polishing his bone-handled revolver. Why not? A rule older than breath, older than this place. The salt remembers. What is he? Jesse only shrugged. Not what, when. James didn't ask again. After the night, Lily almost answered the whispers. James started adding a second salt line down the hallway, leading to the second floor. She never questioned it. She just smiled. You're building me a wall, she said. I'm building you a haven, he corrected. The door was ajar, just slightly, the salt line, disturbed. James's breath caught. He stepped forward, slowly. His flashlight flickered once, then steadied. Inside, the room was dark. No red glow, no steam, nothing, until a low sound like breathing, but too deep, too wide. Then the pilot flame sparked again, and a face appeared, inches from the glass. He turned, didn't look back, stepped over the line, slammed the door, and poured the entire box of salt across the threshold. Now, he writes it in the log every night. Salt line intact. Presence, yes. Interaction, avoided. And next to it, a small note to himself. Never forget the eyes, because the moment you forget the rules is the moment the mall stops playing fair. Behind IKEA, past the service corridor, and under a dead ceiling light, there's a wall panel with no signage, no latch, no handle. James had passed it 100 times before he tried placing his hand flat against it. 6 seconds, a click. Then the wall opened like a freezer door, heavy and slow. Inside, the backrooms, hallways with mismatched beige tiles, ceilings too low in some spots, too high in others. A faint hum in the air that vibrated in his teeth. The layout changed, not constantly, but enough to disorient, enough to make James trace chalk marks on the corners as he walked. He learned the turns by heart. 4 rights, then a left, then the third door. Ben sat on the floor of a windowless room, back against the wall, a red ceramic mug in both hands. Steam curled lazily from the coffee, though James never saw him drink it. He wore a uniform like James's, except faded and threadbare. His badge read, Bennett, Night Security. He looked up with tired eyes when James entered, but said nothing. The first week, he didn't speak at all. James came back every night with a fresh mug, sat across from him, sometimes talked, mostly didn't. The second week, Ben whispered, It's hot. James smiled. Fresh brewed. Ben smiled too. James pieced together Ben's story in fragments. He had once been the night guard. A long time ago, no one ever replaced him. They just forgot he existed. Jesse said Ben walked the halls until he lost his way, until he walked through a door that didn't open for anyone else. Now he's part of the mall, Jesse said. Not stuck, not gone, just paused. Ben never mentioned the boiler room, but James saw the way he flinched when pipes hissed too loud. Ben muttered once, covering his ears. What happened to you down there? Ben only looked away. Ben did odd things. He moved the folding chair from one corner to another and back again, arranged the wheels of the broken supply cart, removed imaginary pins from the empty corkboard. Rituals, like the coffee, James learned to respect them. He knocked before entering, always handed over the mug with both hands, never spoke until Ben blinked first. And when Ben nodded, James knew it was safe to sit. Do you dream? Ben, only when I smell coffee. What about footsteps? That don't echo, right? James didn't ask more. Ben remembered Payless Shoes, said it used to be his favorite break spot. That store had been boarded up for over a decade, still parked behind it. Ben asked one night, It's gone. Ben blinked slowly. Thought so. Once, James forgot to say goodbye. He stood, nodded, turned to leave. The door locked behind him. Ben. James knocked, No answer. It took 20 minutes of talking calmly, respectfully. Before the lock clicked open, Ben sat in the same spot, mug cooling in his hands. "Sorry," he whispered. "You didn't say goodbye." After that, James always did. Sometimes Ben spoke in riddles. The mall breathes through its ducts. The lights don't blink. They signal. There's something behind the sprinkler panel. It sings. James wrote these down. He didn't know why. Maybe one day they'd make sense. One night, Ben held the mug tighter than usual. He's waking up. James felt a chill. Who? Ben's lips trembled. The one beneath the boiler. He's learning the pattern. James stayed longer that night. James never skipped the Backrooms again. Never missed a delivery. Some nights, Ben looked worse. Paler, drained. But the coffee helped. James didn't know if it was the caffeine, the heat, or just the act of remembering. But it helped, and so James kept brewing. The sun was just beginning to rise when James saw her. She stood at the front of the mall, facing the locked glass doors, hands in the pockets of a long gray coat. She didn't look lost, but she didn't look like she belonged there either. James had finished his shift. He had the keys in hand and a half-crushed granola bar in his pocket. He was ready to go home, but something about the woman made him pause. He walked up slowly. The mall's closed. He said gently. She turned, eyes tired but sharp. "I'm not trying to go in. I just ended up here. Wasn't the plan." James nodded. "You used to come here?" She looked at the sign overhead. One of the letters was missing. "Every Friday. With my daughter." James didn't speak for a few moments. He let her remember. She loved the ice cream place upstairs. Mint chocolate chip. Every time. Said it tasted like brushing your teeth. But fun. James smiled faintly. "That's a good description." The woman narrowed her eyes. "How'd you know it was mint?" He hesitated. "Lucky guess." She looked down at her hands. There was a small rip in the wrist seam of her coat. Her nails were clean, unpainted. She died here. An accident. Escalator. They said I couldn't even come near the place until today. I was driving by and her voice trailed off. "I work nights here now," James said. "Started a few weeks back. Long hours. Yeah, but it pays. Why this job?" He looked out toward the empty parking lot. "My daughter's in the hospital. Chloe. She's 6. Got a rare condition. I needed the extra income." "I'm sorry," she said. "She's strong." The woman stepped closer to the glass. Her breath fogged the pain. "Sometimes I think I can still feel her here. Not like a ghost. Just moments. Echoes." James nodded. "I think echoes are real." She always wore this fox-shaped backpack. Blue. Had a tear in one ear. James felt his chest tighten. "I've seen it." Her head whipped around. "Where?" "In a file. Old report." She didn't push. Maybe she was afraid to know more. They stood in silence for a long while. The light grew stronger, somewhere inside. The cleaning bot hummed through the food court. "I come back sometimes," she said. "In my dreams. But it's not a nightmare. It's quiet. Still, she's still upstairs." The woman looked at him sharply. "I mean, her memory. It's not gone. I keep an eye on it." The tension in her jaw loosened. She smiled. "Just barely. Thanks for talking," she said. "Yeah, anytime." She started walking back toward her car, keys already in hand. At the door, she turned. "Hope your daughter gets better." "Thanks." He watched her drive off. Her car had a cracked windshield. One of the taillights was fogged over, but it was clean, cared for. James didn't leave right away. He went upstairs. The ice cream stand glowed faintly. Lily sat behind the counter, swinging her legs. "That was her, wasn't it?" Lily nodded. "She looks like you." Lily smiled. James placed a cone on the counter. "You don't have to talk. Just wanted to say, you're not alone," Lily whispered. "Neither are you." The night started like every other. James did his rounds. He checked the carousel, dropped off coffee for Ben, shared a quiet joke with Jessie, left a cone at Lily's stand. But the mall felt off. Not colder, not louder, just wrong. As if something was walking just behind him, perfectly in step, but invisible in every reflection. Camera 6 stopped flickering. It went black. The salt line outside the boiler room vibrated, not visibly, but James could feel it, like a tension in his jaw. Jesse didn't meet his eyes. When he stopped by, "You feel it too?" James asked. "Been feeling it a while now. We all have." "What is it?" Jesse loaded a revolver with steady hands. "Not what, who," and he's tired of waiting. It started just past 3 a.m. A groaning sound, like wood warping underwater. Then, a high-pitched whistle through the ventilation shafts. Lily appeared suddenly beside James. Her hands were shaking. "He's not supposed to be here." "Who?" She didn't answer, just pointed. James followed her gaze down the escalator. At the bottom stood a figure, not Mr. Longneck. Something else. Its skin was the color of old paper. No face, just folds, like a melted mask. Long limbs bent at the wrong angles. It didn't walk. It glided. It made no sound. James drew his flashlight and pointed it. The beam refracted, like it hit water. Then it moved. Fast, James backed up. Lily screamed. He pulled her behind him. The thing paused, then turned toward the boiler room. James ran. He cut through the service hallway, reached the boiler door. Too late. The salt was gone, scattered. The line broken. He pulled the door open. The room inside was pulsing. Red light, steam, groaning metal. Mr. Longneck was coiled high above the boiler, neck twisting like smoke. And below him, the faceless thing was reaching. James fumbled for the pouch on his belt. The ghost shells were cold in his hand. He loaded one into the revolver Jesse had given him weeks ago, the one he never thought he'd need. The creature turned and smiled. James fired. There was no bang, no bullet hole, just light. The ghost shell hit the thing in the chest. It didn't bleed. It didn't fall. It vanished like steam in sunlight. Mr. Longneck recoiled, letting out a low, mournful sound that vibrated the air. The boiler hissed, and everything went still. He walked out slowly. Lily met him halfway. Did it work? For now, Jesse was waiting near the fountain. Used the first shell. Huh. James nodded. Didn't think I'd need it. You always need it. You just don't know when. The rest of the shift was quiet. Ben took the coffee with both hands and gave a grateful smile. Lily swung her legs and watched the mall lights shimmer. James checked every lock twice. He left just before dawn. His pouch, one bullet lighter, but his step just a little heavier. The mall was quiet again. Whatever had come that night, it was gone. Driven off, banished, or maybe just biding time. James didn't know which, but he knew the weight of the ghost shell missing from his belt, and he knew what it meant. Peace was always temporary, but some peace was better than. Jesse greeted him with the usual half smile and a tip of his hat. Evening. Marshall, just James tonight. You earned the title. Lily smiled when he left a scoop of ice cream on the counter. She didn't say much anymore, but she watched the stars through the glass ceiling, like she was waiting for someone. Ben accepted his coffee with both hands. He looked healthier, or maybe James was imagining it. Memory played tricks here. The salt line at the boiler room remained intact. James refreshed it anyway. The check came on a Thursday. No return address, no logo, just his name, printed in clean, bold letters. It was more than he expected. Enough to cover Chloe's bills, enough to erase months of debt. He paid everything off that same day. Then he sat beside her hospital bed, watching cartoons with no sound. She held his hand. You look less tired, she whispered. I feel less tired, she smiled, and squeezed his fingers. James could have quit, could have walked away, but he didn't. Not just because of loyalty or unfinished business, not even because of Jesse or Ben or Lily, but because the mall still breathed and someone had to watch. He thought about the day someone new would come. Fresh uniform, clean clipboard, hopeful eyes. He'd sit them down, pour coffee, tell them where the salt was kept, who to greet, who to avoid, what to say to the girl upstairs, and what not to say near the vents. He'd tell them about Jesse, about Ben, about Lily, about the shells he never used. They stayed in his pouch, cool and inert. He checked them sometimes, rolled them between his fingers, made sure they hadn't cracked or crumbled. They hadn't. They were lighter than regular rounds, colder, more certain, not for people, not for pain, just for what shouldn't be, and he kept them ready. The mall wasn't just a job. It wasn't even just haunted. It was a collection of endings, of stories too strange to tell aloud, and James had become their keeper. Not all jobs are just jobs, Jesse had said once. Some are callings. Now, as the sun rose behind the parking lot, trees, James stepped into the mall again, badge on, flashlight in hand. The quiet greeted him like an old friend.